Hey, Coach, as you're going through your prep here now, what is the biggest challenge that Atlanta presents?
Uh, Obviously the skill level of Young off the dribble, surrounded by the great shooting with Bogdanovich and Herter, and then the athleticism of Collins and Capella putting pressure on the rim, and then coming in off the bench with guys like Lou Williams, Hunter being back, Gallinari, Tony Snell. So we have to be ready. That's a deep team. They're strong on both sides of the ball. Uh, we're going to have to play well on both sides.
Mark Berman.
Hey, Tom. Just wanted to ask you about Luca Baldoza. It seems he's heading to town Friday. Just what the plan is. Do you see him working drills with the coaches or eventually practicing with the team, or is everything fluid? What?
Yeah, it's pretty much fluid. Obviously, we're excited about him coming over, but he's not really part of the postseason plans. We'll have a chance to work with him, and then obviously over the summer. But we're excited about him getting here.
Steph Bondi.
Hey, Tom, for what felt like a decade, it seemed like LeBron had a stranglehold on the East, and I think he beat you 3 times when you were in Chicago. But
Thanks for reminding me.
sorry. But he's now in the West, and last season nobody expected the Miami Heat to emerge, out of the East. Does his departure open things up a little bit here?
I think it's and obviously his career is pretty special. But you also have a number of other guys that are moving around too. And I think, when you look at Kevin Durant and, guys moving around it's not uncommon. Harden coming from the West. So it goes back and forth with great players, and you have to be ready for everyone. And then there's also there's the emergence of young stars and maybe underrated guys, like a guy like Bam, what he did in Miami, and you couple that with Jimmy Butler being there, and now all of a sudden they become a special team. And if you get hot at the right time and you're healthy, we saw that over the years. Sometimes you have a team that it might be a lower seed, but it's not a true lower seed. It's they had injuries or whatever they may have had. You look at the Lakers, and obviously they're a much higher seed than what their record says. LeBron being out obviously set them back, and then so you have to be ready. But there's always a lot of great stories, and it's you have to take it one at a time, and you go from there.
Ramona Shelburne.
Hey, Coach. I'm just wondering, I know there's not that many people out and about in New York yet, or whatever. I know it's getting back to normal somewhat, but what's it like for you being back in New York, taking the Knicks to the playoffs right now? If you've got a feel for people, every story you go into, people want to, I guess fist bump you or something, whatever we're doing COVID wise instead of shaking hands.
It's been great. It's exciting because obviously I was here in the '90s. I grew up in Connecticut. And I know things are starting to get back to normal. I was stuck in traffic this morning. So people are moving around again, and hopefully, by the end of the summer, it's back to normal. But it's a great sports town. As we know what basketball means to the city. And so hopefully we can give them something to be proud of. We got a special group of guys that have worked extremely hard all year long to put us into this position, and now the challenge starts all over again.
Brian Mahoney.
Having said that, Tom, knowing what basketball does mean here, when you would come in with Chicago and everything, could you kind of sense for a while that it's not supposed to be this way? It's not supposed to be as kind of down as it seems in this building in the city. Certainly not the way it was when you were here as an assistant.
Yeah, well, Madison Square Garden has always been a special place, and I think obviously I saw it at its heights in the '90s, and that was a special time with Jeff and the coaching staff and the great players that we had. It was a lot of fun. The big games that really meant a lot. You could see how excited the city was about the team. And then coming in with opposing teams and just seeing how excited your players are to play in the Garden. And everyone knows we have great fans, and if you make a great play here, it's recognized. And so I think every organization goes through ups and downs, and and the best thing about the Knicks fans is they stay with you. So whether you're here or you're on the road, there's always a lot of New York people supporting the team. And I think what the Knicks mean to the city, it's special.
Ian Bagley.
Tom, earlier in the season when we would ask you about, lineups, rotation, stuff like that, you would always say consistently, like, we're evaluating everything, we're looking at everything. Does that just get heightened in the playoffs? Like, how open do you have to be to making adjustments, lineups, rotation adjustments, game to game based on what you're seeing over the course of a series?
Well, you hit it on the head. You go game to game. But obviously there are things that you've done well throughout the course of the season. So teams really don't change who they are. The strengths of the club remain the same. There might be, a substitution that can change things some, a matchup that you may try to get to, that sort of thing. But usually the biggest adjustment that's made from game to game is the intensity level changes depending upon who may have won the previous game. So you have to be ready for that. And then just knowing with each game, the intensity goes higher and higher because you're playing the same opponent over and over again. So they know you extremely well. You know them. This is where your fundamentals have to be ingrained. You have to understand what your counters are. If they do this, we do that, and try to take advantage of that. But it's about, how hard you can play, how smart you can play, and how together you can play.
Steve Popper.
Hey, Tom, I guess it's hard to be under the radar in New York, but has Reggie been a little bit, almost underrated for what he gives you, kind of steady on both ends?
Yeah, I've said this, I think he and Nerlens have basically been our unsung heroes because they do a lot of the little things that maybe go unnoticed by the outside people, but certainly not by, the people that are in the building here. A lot of the things that they're doing, aren't measured in the box score, but they're impactful in terms of winning. And the type of plays that they make really unite and inspire your team. And that goes a long way. And, especially on the defensive end, the things that we're asking them to do, and to do it game after game and just make big plays for us defensively. Oftentimes it leads to us going out and runs defensively.
Mike Vorkunov.
Tom, I want to go back to the 4-point spot from yesterday I asked you about. Was that a spot or a line? And then where did the inspiration come from for that for you?
Well, I think, you're seeing more teams. When you talk to analytics people, you're measuring where people are shooting from. And oftentimes those are the spots that are unguarded and the range of the players are really increasing. But we put it in just because we wanted to emphasize the three and also emphasize the spacing. And oftentimes I think in transition, you can get guys pretty good looks in that area. And if they're left unguarded, they can make, I think I mentioned this about Quick. We saw that early on. Just, you see him shooting all the time and how deep his range is. And we're comfortable with him shooting those shots. We see it every day. He works on it. He's good at it. And if he's left unguarded, sometimes it's difficult for your opponents to blitz in that area and to get the second defender there so he can get a clean look at it. And if he gets a clean look, he's got a good chance of making it.
Last question, Ian O'Connor.
Yeah, Tom, just to follow up on the fans, since you were one yourself growing up, I was curious, when you think of the prototypical Knicks fan who's lived through a lot of losing and misery for the better part of 2 decades, What specifically do you want that fan to feel Sunday night? And has that been one of the best parts of this job for you, that you've restored a winning team for that fan?
Well, I'm excited for the fans, and as you mentioned, that I grew up, being a Knicks fan, and the '70s had the championship teams, and what Willis Reed and Walt Frazier, Dave DeBusschere, Bill Bradley, what they mean to the city, and then of course the '90s, '94, '99, Patrick, and Larry Johnson, Oak, John Starks, Allen, Spree, special. And so, as I said, you go through different periods, and we're excited because we get great support. I think we have the greatest fans in the world here. They're passionate, and obviously the Garden is such a special place to, not only us, but everyone in the NBA. So it's very meaningful. My family's from Connecticut, so a lot of fans there in Connecticut, New Jersey, that sort of thing. So we want to make sure we're giving them everything we have.